Hello, and welcome once again to Family Historian. My name is Stephen Conte. Tonight we are really going to dig for our ancestors, and I mean that literally. We're going deep into the earth, and we're going to find our ancestors who worked as miners. And joining me on tonight's show, I am very honored to have as my guest a very smart man. His name is Dr. William Truran. Aside from being a very fine historian, he is the author of 6 books, and he descends from a very long line of Cornish tin miners. And on tonight's show, Dr. Truran is going to teach us how we can find our miner ancestor. And now let's welcome Dr. William Truran. Bill, welcome to my show.
Thank you for having me on.
Good. I know you like being called Bill, so we'll call you Bill. How's that?
That's certainly fine.
Okay, Bill, I did my homework, okay, and I never realized that the art of mining goes back thousands and thousands of years. I know that they have found paintings of Egyptian miners on caves, and as a young boy, I read the book King Solomon's Mines. So we're going way, way back. Now, your family on mother and father's side is synonymous with mining. You are a Cornishman, Cornish American, and the Cornish people are the echelon of miners, I believe. But I don't think the majority of Americans know where Cornwall is or anything about the Cornish. Can you tell us about that, please?
Sure, Stephen. Thanks for asking. The Cornish land is a part of England. It's the southern tip of England, and it's connected closely to Wales and Ireland, the Celtics. And today it's a part of the United Kingdom as part of England.
Right, but the Cornish people are a very proud people, a very rugged people. It's a heather-clad land, and we have some heather on the set tonight. And you have been to Cornwall a few times, is that correct?
Yes, I have, several times, and the heather is a big part of the landscape.
Right. Now, tin mining is the major profession in Cornwall. It's been there for many, many years, and you said that both your parental sides, mother and father, go way, way back as Cornish tin miners. Is that correct?
Yes, both my father, Truran, the name, has gone back at least a century or two, and Hall, my mother's father's name, goes back a long time as well.
Right.
In the Cornish area.
Now, the name Truran, T-R-U, you told me that's a very Cornish prefix. What does that mean?
As I've gained to understand it, that the true T-R-U, T-R-E represents they're from an area. The Urin or Ren is heather. So as it's been told to me in Cornish, Truran means home in the heather.
Home in the heather, a lovely, lovely name. Now, I know that you wrote a book. We're getting to that book right now. My fine guest, Dr. Truran, or Bill, wrote a fine book called Mining for America, and it's based on the Franklin and Sterling Hill mines right here in New Jersey, up in Sussex County. And in the book, he has his own genealogy. So can you tell us who's who and how far back that goes?
Sure. Very briefly, from my father's side, the Truran came over around 1912, 1913 from Cornwall. My mother's side, the Hall family, came over around that same time, 1910, and worked in the mines. That's why they came over to the United States from Cornwall. And also, I've got family that are known as the Ramages, Ramage, and Mitchell.
Right.
And they all worked in the mine.
All from Cornwall?
Yes.
Okay. Now, tell me, your parents met here in the United States, is that right?
Yes.
And both of Cornish descent?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Now, Cornwall, what town in Cornwall were your people from?
My father's family lived in Redruth, Cornwall, and my mother's family lived in Penzance.
Would that be the capital of Cornwall? Is that near Land's End? I hear so much about Land's End.
Both of those towns are near Land's End, but the capital of Cornwall is Truro.
I see. Okay, fine. Similar to Truran.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
If you pulled out a phone book, you'd find that there's a lot of people that are TRE, TRU,
Right.
which is different than a normal phone book.
Right, and we do have some pictures of Cornish mines, and they always seem to be near the water. Why is that, Bill?
It's sort of like a foot on the bottom end of the British Isles. So it's bounded on the sea on three sides. So it's not unusual to see it that way.
And you have that characteristic stack on the mine, is that correct?
Many times those mines had a chimney on it.
Right, a chimney, yes.
And the chimney is due to the fact that they had coal-fired furnaces in there to run steam, to make steam engines work, and that's one of the earliest uses of steam in the industrial society.
Wonderful. Now, I see that on our set we have lots of your personal family heirlooms from your mining families. Tell us what this is right here and who that belonged to.
That is a lunch pail, and that belonged to my mother's father, Sidney Hall.
Okay, and the helmet, the Cornish helmet, the miner's helmet, what is that all about?
The hard hat.
The hard hat, I'm sorry.
That's on the desk, on the table. It was also my mother's father's possession, and he'd wear that when he'd go into the mine, as far as safety is concerned.
Very good.
Also on the end of it is a carbide light. In the old days, they used to use candles in order to see, because the mine is as black as could be.
Right, right.
And then they had the carbide light that lasted up until the 1940s, when they went to battery-powered incandescent lights.
Right. Now, getting back to this lunch pail here, there was a Cornish delicacy, a Cornish staple, that many of the Cornish wives prepared for their husbands that they could eat for lunch at work. And what is that called?
That's called a pasty.
All right, and what is a pasty?
A pasty is dough, flour, and potatoes, turnips. If you're lucky, they had some meat in there.
Right.
And it was baked by the wife the night before, and being warm, that they would take it into the mine, the chilly, cold mine, damp mine. For lunch, they look forward to having a pasty.
Wonderful. Now, Bill has a surprise for us. I've never done this on my show before, featuring food. Can you open this up for us and show us what you have in here? You have a surprise for us that
yes.
I believe your own mom made, okay? Can you open the lunchbox for us
Yes.
now? Yes.
My grandfather had this around 1910, 1912.
Your mother's father.
My mother's father. Tea would be in here. You could open up a cup and the tea would come out.
Right.
Warm tea, great idea for a cold
Perfect.
mine.
Very practical. And what do we have in here? Yes, you have some surprises for us.
Yeah, it looks to me like there's a pasty in here. And
these are real pasties.
This is a real pasty from Mom.
Can you open that up for us? Then?
Yes, it's in wax paper, and this is a pasty that they would have in the mine.
Wonderful.
And it's sort of cracked open, so you could see how the potatoes and meat are put inside.
Right, and I've eaten these pasties, and they're wonderful. And I believe in Wharton, New Jersey, which has a large Cornish population, I believe. Isn't there a place there where they sell pasties?
Yes, they do, yes.
Can you buy these frozen, like in your local supermarket?
They do distributions into markets around North Jersey.
Right.
And also, in other jobs,
Right.
I've traveled around the United States, and a couple times I'd come across a little sign saying pasties.
Pasties, okay.
And I'd look back doing some research and find that there was Cornish population that went in there.
Wonderful. So thank you, Mrs. Truran, for this lovely gift here. And you have one more item in here.
Yes, thank you, Mom, for that.
Yes, and can
then,
you show us this?
Then after they had lunch,
Right.
then they'd have an empty lunchbox.
Yeah.
And the mine company, New Jersey Zinc Company, who
Okay.
owned both the Sterling mine and the Franklin mine,
right.
would allow the miners to take home some of the rocks that they were chipping and blasting with dynamite apart.
A souvenir.
As a souvenir. Each day they were able to take in their lunch, as long as it fit in their lunchbox, they'd be able to take a rock.
And I believe you have something here for us.
Yes. So if we had eaten our pasty, then towards the end of the day, we'd be able to grab a sample. And right here we have calcite is the white, and the black is franklinite.
Right, right. Very interesting. Okay. Let's get back to Cornwall.
And these will also be fluorescent.
Yes, and we'll see that later on in our show. Okay, great. Let's get back to Cornwall. I know you told me that you've taken your Cornish ancestors back into the 1400s. Is that correct?
Yes, we're the Trurans.
Isn't that something? The records are very well kept in Cornwall.
When you look and you dig for them, you hopefully, and for me, fortunately, I did find some records that would show the Trurans with a distinctive name.
Very good.
Went back that
And the
far.
Cornish people are a Celtic people similar to the Welsh, who were also very good miners. I believe the Welsh were coal miners, and the Cornish people were the tin miners. Is that correct?
That's correct. They took advantage of the resources that were underground in their area.
Now, here's something else that I discovered, and I think my women viewers will find this interesting. There were women miners in Cornwall. And that was really something. Did they do the same exact job as the men, or did they do a lighter kind of job?
Well, if women were employed, many times they would do something lighter.
I see. And here's another kind of a sad fact. Before the 1930s, when they had the child labor law in the 1930s, they were employing young children as young as 4 years old to work in the mines. And I did find a photograph of a very small boy, and I thought he was so cute that maybe his father dressed him up as a miner, but he was a real miner. And you have seen that photo. I've shown that to you.
I've seen that photo.
And
good research.
That was, and what were those boys called? The boys who worked in the mine?
As I understand it, breakers.
Breakers. And I was also told that if a man was ill or could not work in the mine, his son would cover for him to save his job. Is that correct?
That might be correct. A lot of times the company would say, if there's nobody in the family who's working in the mine, you have to get out of the company housing.
Right, right. Before we close on Cornwall, I do want to say I know one phrase in Cornish, which is a Celtic language, and it's Cerno bis Vicken, which means Cornwall forever. And I think the Cornish language is coming back by enthusiasts. Is that correct?
Yes, by enthusiasts.
Okay, great.
They have some signs up for which direction you're going in on the roads too.
And there is a Cornish English dictionary, I'm sure.
Yes,
right,
that's being developed.
And I believe I gave you and your wife the Lord's Prayer in Cornish.
Yes, what a wonderful gift. Thank you.
Great, great. Now, let's get to the genealogy sources, the how-to sources to find your minor ancestor. And Bill, Dr. Bill here, has brought some documents, original documents that pertain to his family. The first is the ship Manifest, where your grandpa was on that ship. And what was his name?
Samuel Hardy Truran.
But he was known as Hardy, is that right? Or Artie?
Hardy, but then in the Cornish language, it's Artie.
All right. And what year did he come to America?
1913.
Right. Now, he was a wonderful miner. He was a par excellence miner, as all the Cornish men were.
Yeah.
He had a special nickname for other Cornish men, like who joined the mining company. Can you tell our viewers what he called these new men?
For at least 20 years, 30 years, there was a phrase that one would take to their boss in the mine, and that they would be talking about if they had somebody who would be interested in being employed in the mine.
Right.
They would tell their boss, "Hey, I've got this person," and a phrase that covered a lot of resume for them was just to say that this is my cousin Jack.
Cousin Jack.
Yes. And the mine bosses would, if they believed you and verified it, they would assume that this was a hard rock miner who was used to doing tin mining, which is very similar to the mining that was here.
Right.
And so they would take these people just from those two-word phrases that they're experienced and professional miners.
But that was also a phrase that Cousin Jack was really a fellow Cornishman. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it was used for the Cornish guys.
It was a distinct, unique Cornish phrase.
My cousin Jack, who sometimes may have been a distant cousin from the old country or from the same town.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. And since it's a small area, Cornwall, England, that's isolated on three sides by the ocean, probably was a cousin.
Right. So they all knew each other.
Yes.
There was a kinship there.
Yes.
There was a kinship. And I understand that the miners came from all over the world. You had some from Eastern Europe. You had the Welsh miner, the Cornish miner, Italian. My own great-grandfather worked in the mines of Moosic, Pennsylvania in the 1890s. Was there a lot of sometimes hostility between the different ethnic groups? I know the Cornish men were up here. They were usually the foremen, or have you heard of those divisions?
Yes, there'd be spats between different ethnic groups that would come.
Yeah.
As a whole, it was not outlandish.
Right.
It was a frontier town, and they brought in Chief Irons to be the policeman to keep things quiet.
Right.
But as a whole, they did get along together.
Underground, they were all the same.
Hey, you depend on your teammate.
Right. Now, getting back to the records that you did bring, we have Dr. Bill's grandfather's employment record with his photo on it. And what does this record reveal? What does this say? This is an employment record.
Yes.
of your grandpa as a miner.
Yes, he was a part of the New Jersey Zinc Company his whole career here, as was my other grandfather and my cousins,
Right.
The Ramages and the Mitchells. And it reveals that he was working for them. He was there during the 1930s, from 1913 up through the 1940s, late 40s when he passed away. We also have his helmet here too, by the way.
Right, on the back table.
On the back table.
Okay.
So I've got both of my grandparents. And so it showed his record. In addition to the record, they'd have a tag that they'd use when they go into the mine, and the tag would be exchanged from their day tag to the tag that they take to go home. In case there was a mine cave-in, they'd know who was there.
Isn't that something? Now, where did you obtain that employment record, Bill? What source did you get that from?
There's a great movement in Franklin area, which is the Franklin Historical Society.
In New Jersey here?
In New Jersey, in Franklin, New Jersey. And they have what used to be the Time Office, and they've collected the records that came from the New Jersey Zinc Company, and they have those in the museum.
All right. So that's another fine source, okay? So the census records and we do have other census records to show you. There's a 1940 where your grandpa is listed, the 1940 for Franklin, New Jersey.
Yes.
And your grandfather is on that one, listing him as a miner. Okay. And that is right here in New Jersey, those two towns, Ogdensburg and Franklin. They're two beautiful, very enchanting towns in northern New Jersey, Sussex County. That's where all the mining, the zinc mining, was in New Jersey. Is that correct?
At one point in time, that was the largest zinc mine concentrating plant in the world.
And now these are wonderful museums, and we'll feature those very shortly. You can also find from the historical societies lists of miners and photos of miners with their names on there. So if you are a genealogist, these are wonderful sources for you. If you can locate the name of the town where your miner ancestor was from. I know in Pennsylvania you have all these coal mining towns. In New Jersey, we don't have coal in New Jersey. We have zinc and copper and iron, I believe. But all of those towns will have a local historical society. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. If you're lucky, there's a vital society that's pulsing along and looking to obtain records. As people start throwing out their attic items, sometimes they'll take it down to the Historical Society,
Right.
which is a great find.
Right. And you were the historian for Franklin, New Jersey at one time. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
And they have a very fine historical society there,
Yes, they do.
right in the center of that small village, Franklin.
In the center of the town, right at the time office, right where those the miners would obtain their mine tags and
Right.
put their street tags on.
Right. And also the Sterling Hill mine in Ogdensburg, they will have a historical society as well.
There's a Ogdensburg Historical Society that is in the firehouse that they used to have. Sterling Hill Mining Museum is got world-renowned recognition. I think something like 35,000 people a year
Right.
go to visit it, and you could actually go into a mine
Yes.
in the Sterling Hill.
Yes,
mine.
I've been there. It's very impressive. And then we mustn't forget the Franklin Mineral Museum.
Yes, Franklin Mineral Museum has the world's largest collection of the specimens that came from the Franklin and Sterling Hill mine. And Franklin is known as Franklin Ogdensburg is known as the fluorescent mineral capital of the world.
Right.
And there's more fluorescent minerals in that area than anywhere else in the world, just from the one ore body that
Now,
was there.
these two mines were one mine at one time. Is that correct?
Well, they were both owned by the New Jersey Zinc Company from 1910 through the closing in either 1954 or 1980s. And before that, they were owned by a lot of different companies. But it was really the New Jersey Zinc Company
Right.
that owned both of them.
Right. Before we close, I just want to go over those sources again for the genealogist. The company, mining companies will sometimes have records available.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, and if I may add
Sure,
to that,
sure.
New Jersey Zinc Company that closed then gave many of the records to the Rutgers Alexander Library.
Really? I never knew that.
I've been down there, and there's a tremendous load of information from when the mine was active.
Would they give genealogy information, like lists of miners, men who worked in the mines?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I saw a letter from Catlin, who was the superintendent, and to Mitchell, which was
Yes.
one of my ancestors, and talking about having a cow outside, selling the milk, Long Brick Row, which is tremendous for
Great.
me to come across.
Now, you mentioned that the Franklin and the Sterling mines are the fluorescent capital of the world. No place on the planet has this number of fluorescent rocks or minerals. Is that correct?
That's correct. And unique minerals too. They're only found in that area.
All right, and you can see we have some rocks on our set in the back here. They look kind of dull right now, but tell us what happens when a certain light goes on them.
When a fluorescent light goes on, shortwave energy is put on them, they then fluoresce.
Oh, how lovely. And we have a rainbow of colors.
They have a rainbow of colors, and they're very bright.
Very good. You know, I cannot tell people enough, please visit the Franklin Mineral Museum in Franklin, New Jersey.
Yes.
And of course, the Sterling Hill Mining Museum. You can do this all in one day.
Yes.
And I do want to thank my very fine guest, Dr. William Truran, Bill, for coming on my show. I don't know how to say thank you or goodbye in Cornish. Do you know how to say it?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay, but you'll learn, okay?
Yes.
And I understand you're working on more books right now. You have 6 under your collar here. And you're working on a 7th book or a 6th book right now?
7, 8, and 9 are underway right now.
Wow, and they're all about history right here in New Jersey.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Bill, for coming on my show.
Thank you for having
and
me.
talking about your wonderful Cornish ancestors and the very proud profession of mining. And on that note, as I've been saying for the past 31 years, remember, we are all descendants of ancient civilizations. Genealogy is your key to the history of your family. And so until next time, this is Stephen Conte wishing you the very best of luck in your research, and above all, happy ancestor hunting. Good night.